Hello, and welcome to the PeopleSoft Requisition tutorial. Please open the PeopleSoft Requisition manual and follow along as we go. Today we'll be creating a purchase requisition, performing a requisition budget pre-check, and submitting the requisition for approval. The first step we're going to take is we're going to gather our quote from our supplier. And the example I chose today is a quote from Grainger. The quote number, date, and rep name are in the upper right hand corner. And the items we're going to be requesting is a utility cart, a floor mat, and some key cabinets. And my requisition total is $5,862. So the first step is to check the supplier list spreadsheet to make sure that the vendor does exist in PeopleSoft. So I'm going to do a search in the spreadsheet, and I'm going to search for Grainger, and there they are. If you find that your vendor is not in this spreadsheet, or if you do a search in PeopleSoft, go ahead and email the Procure to Pay department and let them know. They will start the process of entering the supplier. You can't create a purchase requisition if the supplier doesn't exist for Pierce College, so that's why this is step one. So go ahead and log into PeopleSoft, and when you're on the main page, go ahead and click on the compass in the upper right hand corner, click on Navigator, select Purchasing, select Requisitions, and then you're going to click on Add Update Requisitions. And that brings you to this requisitions page. We're going to click on the tab that's Add a New Value. And then we want to select the Pierce College Business Unit, which is WA110. And we're going to have the requisition ID say Next in capital letters. And that will generate the next requisition ID available. So we're going to click Add. And this brings us to our main requisition page. The first thing we're going to do is assign a requisition name, and we want to do that to give our requisition a unique identifier so that we can search it later on. So I'm just going to call my requisition utility cart, floor mat, and I can't type the whole word key cabinet in there, so it's just going to say K. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add myself as the requester, so I'm going to search for Heather Alexson, and I'm going to click on names. I'm going to type my first name in. There I am. If you know your ID by heart, you can type that in too. So there I am. I'm going to leave the requester date in as today's date. I'm going to leave the origin and currency code as what was defaulted. And then the accounting date, I'm actually going to push this out a couple weeks. And that's because the accounting date determines the open period or allowable date range for a budget check of a requisition. And if the accounting date falls before or after the open period, the system prevents us from running a budget check, which encumbers the amount. So we want to push this date out quite a bit. So the next thing we're going to do is add comments, and the header comments should encompass the requisition as a whole. So this would be notes to the vendor for all of your line items. It could be notes to your approver. I'm going to add the email address for my rep at Grainger. This is a good idea to do all your requisitions like this. That way the purchasing department knows who to email your purchase order to. In the facilities department, you would add your prevailing wage or any of that information in this section as well. So you can also include attachments to your requisition. So I'm just going to add my Grainger quote, and I'm going to upload that. And it takes a little bit. You'll see the spinning dial, and it looks like my attachment was successful. I'm going to view it just in case, make sure everything was okay. And it looks like it's good to go. If you have a physical contract that you need to get signed, go ahead and still mail that into the purchasing department through interdepartmental mail. We will get that signed and attach it to the purchase order when it's ready to go. So I'm going to click OK here. And then I'm done with the header section. So I'm going to move down to the line items section. And the first tab I'm going to go into is supplier information. And I'm going to go ahead and enter my supplier. So I'm going to search for the supplier just to show you how you can search for suppliers. So I'm going to click on the vendor ID area, or supplier ID, and I'm going to go to my spreadsheet, and because I already looked it up, I have the supplier ID available, and I'm going to cut and paste that into my requisition, and I'm going to look it up, and there's my supplier. So that makes it really easy to do. You can also just paste the number in the section. So next we're going to look up the location, and we have to have a Pierce College location. So I'm going to select Pierce College. If you find that Pierce College is not available in the location section, that means we need to add Pierce College to that vendor. So please contact the purchasing department and we can do that for you. So the next thing we're going to do is, because we have 3 line items in our quote, we're actually going to add 3 line items in this area. You can really do it on any of the tabs that I'm going to work through, but it's just easiest to do here because we have to add the vendor to each one of our line items anyways. So I'm just going to cut and paste Granger's supplier ID in there, and I'm going to choose Pierce College as my location for each line item as well. And at this point, I'm done with my supplier information. So I'm going to move to the details tab, and I'm going to start with the description. We don't want to enter item numbers. We just want to go straight to description. So I'm going to expand the first line item, and I'm going to put in that I'm buying a utility cart, my item number, my quote number, and the quote date. Now you'll notice that I don't have a lot of characters remaining, so if you find that you've ran out of space in the description lines, you can add notes in the line comments section. So if you're doing services and all you can fit is the scope of work in the description, you can add the location of the service, who to contact, all of that information can go in here. So I just wanted to show you that. So now that my description is finished, I want to show you in the manual how we have samples of all different kinds of descriptions you might need to add into a requisition. So definitely use your manual as a resource tool of how to enter information about what you're buying and what's required there. Next, I'm going to add my quantity, and I just want quantity of 1. My unit of measure is going to be each, but I do want to show you how there's multiple unit of measures available, but the purchasing department generally uses each or lot to describe what types of quantities we're buying. The next is the category code number, and this is a new number that we've never had to use in a requisition before. And if you use the Quick Find tab, this has a lot of applicable category codes, and basically you're just assigning a number to the type of commodity it is. So I'm not really finding anything on the Quick Find tab. These are IT carts, so I'm actually going to go to the comprehensive list and do a search for the word cart, and I'm looking at all the search availability, and it looks like this carts industrial all kinds is the best option. So I'm going to select that, and it looks like the category code for those types of things is 560. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in 560 for my category code, and that will take care of the commodity I'm buying. I'm going to go ahead and add the price that's on my quote, so it's $661, and I have finished my first line item. Now through the power of editing, I've gone ahead and done all 3 line items. It's just the same steps for each one. And so the next step we're going to do is we're going to click on Ship to Due Date tab, and we're going to choose a due date that is a couple of weeks out. And then the Ship to, you'll see that it defaulted to Central Receiving Fort Silicum, and that's because that's where my office is and it defaults there. But there's a multitude of ship tos for all kinds of arrangements that we would have with a vendor. So I'm just going to keep this as Fort Silicum for my ship to. So next I'm going to click on the schedule icon, and this brings me to the schedule line for my utility cart, and I'm going to click on distribution. And here I'm going to select whether I want to distribute by quantity or amount. And I'm going to choose quantity here. We're going to use quantity for most of our purchase requisitions. Choose amount if it's a blanket order, but for everything else, choose quantity. So then I'm going to enter my chart string, and if I have multiple chart strings, I can add them there. But I'm just going to go ahead and add my operating unit, which is the district. I'm going to select my account number, which is equipment. Some people want to know the difference between supplies versus equipment. Supplies are under $100 and have a lifespan of less than a year. So I'm going to choose equipment for my cart. And I'm just going to look up all account numbers that start with 503. And there it is, non-capitalized office furniture and equipment. So next I'm going to move on to assigning my fund, my class, and my department code. Now, if this was a grant, I would enter the PC business unit, project and activity, but I'm not using a grant, so I'm going to skip that. And then my state purpose is null because it's not an IT purchase. So once I'm done, I'm going to go back to the main page, and I'm going to add my chart strings. And again, through the power of editing, I'm going to quickly do this. And once I'm done filling out my last chart string for my last line item, I'm going to click OK. And then now I'm going to click Save. And when you click Save on a requisition, what it does is it generates the requisition ID number. So at the top, you'll see I'm number 15. So I've created requisition ID number 15. And my requisition is complete at this point. You'll see that the dollar total equals with what my quote was for. And so now a small tip that I want to give you, if you click on requisition default, this allows you to load a lot of the things that we just entered in as default. So you can put your chart string in, and you can do your due dates. All of that you can preload in, and it will auto-populate. The only warning I want to give about doing that is make sure that that is what you want to have for every single section of your requisition. So the next thing we're going to do is perform our budget pre-check. So we're going to click on the icon with the little glasses, and it's budget pre-checking. It can take a while sometimes. And what budget pre-check does is it makes sure that there are funds in the budget that we chose in the chart string. So you'll see the budget status right now is not checked. But as soon as this passes, now it says provisionally valid, which means there is money and funds available in the budget that I selected. So now I'm going to just submit my requisition for approval by clicking on that green checkbox. And you'll see the status is as pending now. And if you go down to view approvals, you will see all of the steps that this requisition has to go through. So there's a buyer approval, and then there's a chart string approval. So the purchasing department will approve your requisition first, and then it will go down to the chart string approvals. So, and right now it's pending for that. So just hit return, and then I'm going to hit return to search, and you'll see your requisition is now in the system, and you can find it and search for it in that tab. And that's how you create a purchase requisition.